Taking the misfortune ability to the extreme is pretty wild. Fuko just gave the protagonist's abs a light slap. And boom, he got hit by a tanker truck on the spot. The protagonist couldn't believe it. This guy actually sold himself out just for a chance to munch on a yarn ball. And to add insult to injury, it triggered a chain of minor misfortunes. You can guess the outcome. He ended up looking like a bear chewed him up. Turns out, not long ago, they went to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to recruit the 11th member of their alliance. Their mission was to infiltrate a cruise ship for an underground auction. It's said that unmanaged negators and ancient artifacts are traded there. The organization had infiltrated and destroyed it a long time ago. But for some unknown reason, it's back. The negator No Cure was rumored to appear there. According to the revelation, their plan was to infiltrate the cruise ship as a couple. Before this, the female lead wondered why the boss chose her for this mission, feeling like she'd just drag everyone down, but the boss firmly believed in his choice, linking it to her consistent pursuit of justice, protecting the planet and its innocent people. That's why they sent Blue Hair to hunt down Fuko initially, fearing her misfortune ability could endanger the planet. However, after witnessing Fuko's control over her ability in her fight with Victor, the second war god persona of the protagonist, the boss thought her misfortune ability might be harnessed to kill a god if controlled properly, but their current power isn't enough to face the impending punishment of Ragnarok. So, the boss wanted Fuko to stay close to the protagonist, hoping their mutual understanding and affection would enhance her misfortune ability to its god-killing potential. With some time before their mission, the protagonist and Fuko went to the beach. What bothered him more was the misfortune Victor brought, not being the one kissed. He's now eager to kiss Fuko, hoping to experience the thrill of a meteorite strike, but Fuko isn't one to waste her good fortune lightly. Seeing no escape from the protagonist, she stopped and took off her gloves, thinking she was using her misfortune to buy time. But that touch, just 2.5 seconds, and the protagonist was sent flying by a suddenly appearing tanker truck. Not only did he scatter, but it also triggered a chain of misfortunes, ending with a shark attack. When Fuko found him, he was a sorry sight. The protagonist admitted he didn't know much about Victor or even why he exists, but he was sure he's the real deal. He warned that Victor might reappear and cause harm. Hearing this, Fuko promised to save him with her misfortune ability, no matter how many times it takes. As she tried to help him up, another mishap occurred because she forgot her gloves again. Suddenly, Tatiana fell from the sky, marking another quick trigger of Fuko's misfortune. Why she appeared so abruptly was a mystery, but back to the point. The boss informed them they'd be setting off for the cruise ship in 7 hours, with Tatiana infiltrating from the outside to locate No Cure. Inside, they hoped the two would keep a low profile. Disguised as a couple, they successfully infiltrated the cruise ship. Among the elite guests, they learned that the so-called UMA lifeforms, deemed too weak to be of use, were disposed of as cuisine, which outraged Fuko. However, the main event of the auction was the capture of negators, easily caught because the previous mission's reward had unified global languages, excluding negators. So, this flaw also led to some negators who don't speak English being easily identified. Hearing this, the female lead fell into sorrow. Unsure whether joining the organization or being sold here was better, the protagonist suggested that perhaps both options were just as bad. He then confessed that he used to think there were 3 types of lives for negators: those who face their abilities and continue to live, those who fall into despair and choose death, and those who recklessly commit evil deeds. However, after joining the organization, he realized there's a 4th type: those who aim to kill the god behind the scenes. This thought only emerged after he joined the organization. Before Fuko could make a choice, the scene shifted to above the cruise ship. Blonde Hair was planning to take his sister to the deck to watch the stars and the moon, but was blocked by the mafia with guns. What they didn't know was that Blonde Hair's power was also freakishly strong.
ええ、そのまま一発もらって。
そうか。じゃあ死なないな。
なんて手が動かねえ。
Blonde Hair then summoned a whale, which spat out 2 disgusting things. It turned out these were their companions for this operation, aiming to snatch the negators being auctioned. In a gesture of welcome, Blonde Hair attempted a handshake, only to find out the others only spoke Chinese. Of course, they were also negators, so their language hadn't been unified yet. Unbeknownst to them, their actions were being closely watched by Tatiana, who had infiltrated from the outside. She quickly relayed this information to everyone. The boss also learned of this and noted that forcibly collecting negators was different from the organization's policy. The organization's goal is to kill the god, while the newly appeared group only seeks revenge on the world. this is the craziest protagonist I've ever seen. Just because he has the superpower of eternal youth and immortality, he really doesn't care about his body at all. Even when facing the crazy shooting of a Gatling gun, the protagonist still stands unyielding. Moreover, his way of greeting enemies is also extremely unique. However, the enemy the protagonist encounters this time is very tricky. His no-healing superpower is the protagonist's nemesis, negating any healing actions for wounds made against him. Not long ago, after learning that no healing would attend a negator auction on a cruise ship, they thought it was an opportunity to recruit him as the 11th seat. But coincidentally, their plot was overheard by Tatiana. Of course, this time, the protagonist and Fuko must stop all this and rescue the negators before no healing does. After breaking through the mafia's defense, they reach the warehouse of auction items in the ship's lower deck. For some reason, a high school student suddenly escaped from the warehouse. The scene became very awkward because he was discovered by the mafia. However, as long as he touches his forehead, the opponents would freeze, but they would unfreeze as soon as he moves. Now he's in a real bind, unable to run or move, facing a tough choice. But why was his ability discovered? It was well hidden before. All this started one day on his way to school when he noticed his classmates were all speaking English. Even the TV and the text on the screen were all in English. Unbeknownst to him, this was the result of a reward previously given by the revelation, unifying the world's languages except for negators. His classmates were astonished. His loud complaints attracted the mafia's sneak attack, and he was electrocuted and taken away. When he came to, he found himself thrown into a cage with strange creatures around him. Already scared enough, now he was being pointed at with a gun. Just as the mafia was about to shoot his leg to calm him down, he felt a chill on his back. It turned out no healing had taken him out. After a brief observation, no healing was satisfied with the boy's immobility. This was the restraining ability he had been dreaming of. Just escaped one disaster, and now another group arrived. The boy didn't know if they were friend or foe and had to respond in his imperfect English. This completely confused no healing. He wanted to inquire about the specific effects of the ability, but the language barrier was a problem. So, he decided to let the muscle man test it out. Now it wasn't just a pistol but a Gatling gun waiting. He advised the boy to use his ability quickly if he didn't want to die. If he couldn't use his ability freely, then the boy wasn't the person they were looking for. Moreover, even if the target died, the ability would transfer to someone else. Calculating quickly, if the timer reached 5 seconds, his life would be taken. At that moment, the boy realized they were not rescuers. As he contemplated whether to use his ability, his body couldn't stop trembling. The next moment, the muscle man mercilessly opened fire on him. According to the law of smoke without injury, a miracle was supposed to happen at this critical moment. And indeed, the protagonist arrived on the scene, blocking all the bullets with his body. At the same time, Fuko put a translating tie on the boy. After finding the target, he immediately notified Tatiana to come for support. The protagonist scanned the area and realized these 4 people were all seasoned players. No sooner had he spoken, no healing teleported and cut the protagonist's carotid artery. The protagonist instinctively fought back, but ketchup-like blood spurted out as if it cost nothing. Based on his analysis of the protagonist's ability, no healing confidently stated that the wound could not heal. He advised the protagonist not to waste his effort, as this was his negating ability against wounds, but he underestimated the protagonist. Handing the knife to Fuko, he ran towards the opponent, intending for Fuko to chop off his little head, then using the blood from regeneration to perform an ascension attack on the spot.
11人目は
This move completely baffled no healing. Meanwhile, Tatiana broke through the wall to support, grabbing the muscle man and the martial artist with her mechanical hand. That is, she would take care of these two, leaving the protagonist to focus on no healing and the woman by his side. Upon hearing this, the protagonist immediately charged forward, using his regenerative abilities to slash at the opponent with his sword. However, Not Cure was not an easy target. With agile movements, he dodged the attack and in turn, severed the protagonist's hands. Not Cure was smug, thinking the wounds were incurable, unaware that the protagonist was about to make a countermove by quickly activating his forearm projectile skill. Just when he thought he had succeeded, his companion stepped in front, altering the trajectory of the protagonist's attack. This puzzled the protagonist, wondering if this woman's ability was to negate attacks. Seeing this, Not Cure expressed admiration for the protagonist's abilities and invited him to join their side for a good time. Naturally, the protagonist refused. Previously, he thought Not Cure's abilities were formidable, but now he realized that Not Cure Cure couldn't kill him. Losing interest in him, Not Cure then turned his recruitment efforts towards Fengzi, appreciating her wild actions compared to the young man who was terrified at the first sign of trouble. Although the young man's immobility ability was impressive, as a person, he was not remarkable. Therefore, eliminating him was the right course of action, aligning with their goal of seeking strong partners to start invading countries. As the protagonist made a slashing attack right in front of Not Cure, tomato juice splashed onto the woman's face. The protagonist guessed that the woman's ability was to negate attacks. At this point, Not Cure began to lose patience and threw a scalpel towards the young man. The protagonist blocked it, but the scalpel still pierced his arm. In a critical moment, Fengzi stepped forward to block the scalpel with her body. Not Cure couldn't understand why Fengzi would protect such a useless person, predicting she had at most an hour to live. Seeing Fengzi in danger, the protagonist couldn't help but consider removing the card to call for a larger force to save the day. However, Fengzi still managed to smile, claiming she was fine and asked the protagonist to act as usual. Fortunately, the protagonist's rationality overcame his anger. At that moment, the mafia on the cruise arrived at the scene. Seeing this, Not Cure chose to flee, finding the outcome acceptable since he managed to eliminate a member of the alliance. The mafia mistook the protagonist for a negator hunter. Faced with their guns, the protagonist was in a dilemma. Any movement would prompt them to shoot, preventing him from protecting the two. The young man, feeling guilty, took off his jacket intending to help Fengzi stop the bleeding. Remembering Fengzi's sacrifices, the young man stood up, pleading with the mafia to call a doctor for treatment, only to be rewarded with a bullet. Terrified, he touched his bracelet, recalling his mother's words before her death. She had told him to cherish those who treat him kindly and to stand up for them in times of trouble. By doing so, they would become his unbreakable partners.
もういい。
お前能力がいい